Hey guys, how's it going? I just wanted to jump on today and kind of go a little bit more in depth over the FRC stuff I started explaining last week. I will try to make this short if I can. Sometimes I get a little carried away with how much I like to talk. Grace, don't you say a fucking word. So, we are going to go over C.A.R.s, or controlled articular rotations, not the ones we drive around. I mean, I could talk for hours about those cars too, but today it's about the body. The C.A.R.s are going to be the foundation of the FRC system. The reason they are the foundational piece of the FRC system is we are using them to create a daily habit of using your joint capacity. So on an everyday basis, we want to at least spend a little bit of time trying to utilize our ranges of motion that we have in the joints right now. So it maintains and controls full range of motion at the joint capsule. And usually when I start introducing people to these C.A.R.s and they start understanding the range of motion that they're lacking, well, then it starts to point out to us, oh, well, these are the areas of improvement that we need to work on. So the controlled portion of a C.A.R. is going to incorporate Sheridans Law of irradiation, which states a muscle working hard recruits its neighboring muscles, and if they are already part of the action, then amplifies their strength. So with this law, we're able to brace the rest of our body and isolate the joint capsule that we want to work on. So by utilizing this, our body is able to give us now better neural feedback and control at the joint capsule itself, because we're keeping everything else out of the movement that we're trying to perform. So just once again, we're using this to really isolate that joint and figure out where can we move with that joint. The articular part of C.A.R.s is going to be relating to the joint. So that's just our fancy way of saying joints. So we're controlling the joint. And the reason we want to control the joint is it's the innermost tissue to perceive motion first. So it's the deepest tissue that we have in the body that is going to start perceiving our motion or our movements. So if you want to be proficient at moving and say you want to move things proficiently with an external load, having the ability to control the joints is going to allow you to have more control of those movements. Now, the rotations part is important because at the joint, it is multi-directional that it can move, but it can also rotate. So like the hips and the shoulders, they will have internal, external rotation components added to them that are extremely important for how well they work. So you always think of flexion, extension, even adduction, abduction, so in and out, up and down, things like that. But a lot of people don't realize that your hips and shoulders need to rotate internally and externally to complete ranges of motion for a lot of everyday tasks. So this is giving us awareness there. And then when we're doing the C.A.R.s, we're pushing the outermost limits of that rotation because we're trying to get as many mechanical receptors activated, and that's going to give us more feedback to our nervous system, and it's going to allow us to program, our body to say, hey, this is where this joint's able to move to. And these are the different areas that we can, explore and have control over, so that when we go and say do a lift, now we're going to know where we're able to move. We're not going to be just pushing it because the weight's on us and we're allowing it to move us around. No, instead we're having control of that weight and we're moving it where we need it to be. So the last thing that these C.A.R.s, they're really good for programming the body. They're really good for all these other things, but they're also really important for injury rehab and prevention. The reason it's going to be important is it'll restore that joint's awareness. So I personally have a left shoulder that dislocates with external rotation. Because I've been doing C.A.R.s every day for the last 4 months, I now have more control over that shoulder than I've had in the last 10 years. So that leads to the next part, neuromuscular retraining. I now have more control of the muscle around my shoulder capsule than I ever had before, only doing strength training. So I spent 9 fucking years sitting here trying to strengthen all the muscles around my bones, thinking that that would keep my bone in place, and all the while I was missing joint tissue that I wasn't training. And as soon as I started training the joint tissue, it started responding by giving me better control. And then the last part of that, so the thing that really helps with my particular issue is increasing passive strength and stability. So I would be afraid to put my arm in the most normal positions for most people, but I didn't have that passive strength, let alone any control there. So I would get in these places and it would just pop out and I'd have to put it back in. And if you've ever dealt with a dislocated bone, it fucking sucks. So Doing this was my main reason for ever getting into FRC. I had talked to Cooper, and Cooper goes, yeah, we can fix your shoulder. And I go, all right, well, let's try it. And lo and behold, here we are 8 months later, and I now have more control over that shoulder and feel safer using it on a daily basis, which gives my mind a huge break. Like, people don't realize how much things manifest from a mental aspect into a physical aspect, or even vice versa. If you have a physical injury, that's going to manifest in your brain as a handicapped. You're already going to sell yourself short before even trying, because you believe X injury is not going to allow you to accomplish the goal that you're trying to achieve. So if we can now take your programming and restart at the base, which is the joint capsule, and teach the joint capsule how to have better control and better awareness and then better strength, when you go in to add muscular strength, you're not going to be limited by having shitty connective tissue. So if you guys want to go, more in depth on this, feel free to reach out and shoot me a DM. Otherwise, I will go ahead and keep making different presentations on portions of FRC. Now remember, the C.A.R.s are just the foundational part. This is literally step 1 in an 8-step process. So stay tuned for more.